About influence, power, politics, which can be found in chapter 15 of the textbook, and sushi. This presentation was created by yours truly, Michelle Arutian. So before we begin, I want to discuss something really quick. What are these three things, and what role do they have to this course? So influence, power, and politics are three different components used for a single general process. These three components are also heavily intertwined with the concept of leadership. All three of these include one party trying to affect the behavior of another individual. So, power and influence. Power includes the use of work relationships in order to convince someone to fulfill a certain action. And I found this interesting, and the textbook emphasized how specifically with power, it's still, the convincing still happens even despite resistance. And influence includes more social aspects, such as social power and social control, to impact behaviors. Our primary focus today is going to be organizational politics. There are functional and dysfunctional politics, and organizational politics are essentially when individuals do self-serving actions that are designed to affect the behaviors of others, but to achieve personal goals. So I have a perfect example of this from my first job. I got it when I was 17, and I worked at a sushi restaurant. I worked there for about 8 months, I believe, in total, and I was told all the time, if you stay longer after clocking out, I'll be sure to put in a good word for you. You'll probably be promoted. And in the beginning, while I was working there, I didn't really see this as a problem. I was constantly being flattered and getting comments about how strong my work ethic was and how mature I am and how responsible I could be. And obviously I liked this. I didn't want to quit. This was about 4 to 5 months in. I felt, valued and important, and I felt like I had a mission in this company, and I had to, fulfill all the roles I was assigned. So officially I was assigned to just be the hostess, and then my manager started giving me more and more responsibilities. So when we were short, I would serve tables, and I would bus tables, and I would help with kitchen prep, and I would do everything in the restaurant. And even if I served tables, I wasn't allowed to collect the tips because I wasn't officially a server, I was a hostess, so I would have to give the manager all my tips that I made. So I felt high levels of pressure from my manager to perform all these different tasks. I had multiple roles. I had obviously a big work overload and high levels of stress, which overall lowered the quality of customer service that I could provide. So this is an example of dysfunctional political behavior because in the long term, it detracted from the sushi restaurant's main goals. It wasn't about, the best service to the customers or serving the best sushi. It kind of turned into me just working, giving the tips to the manager, being so tired and so all over the place that I couldn't fulfill the role that I did have. I couldn't, be a happy, perky host. It was more like, oh, can you hold on? Let me look for a table. I couldn't give that whole experience. So it's interesting because in our textbook, research finds that for many workers, organizational politics is seen as a significant source of stress, and highly political organizations can experience high levels of turnover and job dissatisfaction, which, to connect this back to my personal experience, my perceptions of the politics got worse. I started to see things for how they really were, and I had a huge psychological strain. I was extremely dissatisfied, and overall, the outcome was that I had poor performance. I wasn't doing the best job I could be doing. And for this term paper, I found an interesting journal by Robert C. Schneider called Understanding and Managing Organizational Politics, and he talks about self-interest and organizational interests and how it's super important to make sure that organizational interests always go before self-interest, or else it leads to negative outcomes that can ultimately, lead to the demise of an organization because it lowers productivity, which is exactly what I experienced. So he lists 2 different types of methods for solutions. The first method consists of direct methods, and the first one is involving employees in decision making. Number 2 is emphasis on teamwork. Number 3, building trust and social support. Number 4, hiring politically underskilled employees. Number 5, base personnel and program decisions on objective criteria. His indirect methods include number 1, boosting intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Number 2, boosting employee engagement. And number 3, implementing effective job designs. So, based off of all the information I've learned throughout this course, I came up with my own solution for the problem. And these are the 3 things that I find most important for working towards a solution in this specific case. And number 1 was to reward performance and not politics. Because I personally believe that in all aspects of life, actions speak louder than words. So if someone is working harder, they're always there, they're putting a full effort, you can see that. You can't see, looking at the time a worker clocked in and clocked out can only tell you so much. You don't really know anything about them. The second is to stick to properly configured job designs, which would have been amazing if I had that and I knew that this was my job and this is what I needed to do, but that wasn't the case. I was just, listening to whatever my manager told me and doing whatever things he told me I needed to do, because I didn't know what my job was. I was just working. And number 3 is to emphasize the importance of working as a team, which at my work environment was completely discouraged. We weren't supposed to get close with each other. They didn't want us to build connections with each other or talk too much about our finances. And later on I found out this was because the other servers and my coworkers were all making significantly more than I was for working significantly less. Yeah. So those are my 3 main solutions, and thank you for listening to my presentation.